7 astronauts are traveling at Mach 18, 200,000 feet above Texas. The shuttle is on fire, and not one of them knows it yet. That's the thing about the Columbia disaster that nobody talks about. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was a tragedy wrapped inside a bureaucratic failure, wrapped inside a cover-up, wrapped inside a moment of silence in a Texas pine forest. And the details, the actual documented forensic details of what happened to those 7 people and what was found in the debris field, are so strange, so haunting, so genuinely unbelievable that NASA sat on the full report for 5 years before releasing it to the public. So, let's go through all 22 of them. 1. The foam strike. On January 16, 2003, 81 seconds after Columbia left the launch pad, a briefcase-sized chunk of insulating foam broke off the external fuel tank and punched a hole in the leading edge of the left wing. It hit at roughly 530 miles per hour relative to the shuttle. The impact lasted less than a tenth of a second, and in that fraction of a second, 7 people were sentenced to death. They just didn't know it yet. 2. The accepted risk. Here's the part that should make your blood boil. Foam had struck the shuttle on 65 of the 79 previous missions where launch footage was available. 65. NASA had internally classified foam strikes as an accepted flight risk, meaning they knew it happened, they knew it could cause damage, and they decided to keep flying anyway. The Columbia disaster wasn't a freak accident. It was a slow-motion institutional decision that finally ran out of luck. 3. The ignored warning. During Columbia's 16 days in orbit, engineers on the ground flagged the foam strike and pushed hard for a closer look. The Department of Defense was reportedly ready to redirect spy satellites to photograph the damaged wing. NASA management declined. Their reasoning? Even if the damage was confirmed, there was nothing the crew could do about it. So they decided not to look. They chose ignorance over information and sent 7 people home to die. 4. The last 16 days. While NASA managers were deciding not to look, Commander Rick Husband, pilot William McCool, mission specialist Kalpana Chawla, David Brown, Laurel Clark, Michael Anderson, and payload specialist Ilan Ramon, Israel's first astronaut, were running 80 experiments in 2 12-hour shifts around the clock. They were doing science. They were laughing. They were taking photos. They had absolutely no idea that the left wing of their spacecraft had a hole in it. 5. The final transmission. On February 1, 2003, at 8:59:32 a.m. Eastern Time, Commander Rick Husband responded to Mission Control's inquiry about tire pressure readings. He said, "Roger, and then nothing." Columbia was near Dallas, traveling 18 times the speed of sound, 200,700 feet above the ground. Mission Control called again and again. 12 minutes later, a controller received a phone call. A TV network was showing footage of the shuttle breaking apart in the sky. 6. The survival window. Here's the detail that haunts everyone who reads the 2008 NASA crew survival report. The crew did not die instantly. When the shuttle began to break apart, the crew module, the pressurized cabin, remained structurally intact for a brief period. The astronauts were alive. Some of them were conscious. Switch positions inside the cockpit showed that at least some crew members were actively trying to regain control of the vehicle in those final seconds. 7. The depressurization. Then the cabin depressurized. According to NASA's report, the event was so rapid that the crew was incapacitated within seconds before they could configure their suits for full protection. Although circulatory systems functioned for a brief time, the report states, the effects of the depressurization were severe enough that the crew could not have regained consciousness. This event was lethal to the crew. They were unconscious before they could feel what came next. 8. The helmets that didn't help. One crew member was not yet wearing their helmet when the breakup began. 3 were not wearing gloves. But here's the thing, it wouldn't have mattered. The helmets were not designed to protect against the kind of trauma that followed. Once the crew lost consciousness, their upper body seat restraints failed under the violent rotational forces. Unconscious bodies were flung around the disintegrating cabin. The helmets didn't conform to the head. The report is clinical about it. Lethal trauma occurred. 9. The temperatures. The shuttle was traveling at Mach 18 through the upper atmosphere. Temperatures on the leading edges of the wings reached over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit during normal re-entry. With the hole in the left wing, superheated plasma, not just hot air, actual plasma, was bleeding into the wing structure. The aluminum was melting from the inside. The crew never felt it. They were already gone, but the shuttle was being consumed alive around them. 10. The debris field. Columbia disintegrated over Texas at approximately 9 a.m. Pieces rained down across more than 2,000 locations spanning eastern Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. The debris field covered roughly 2,000 square miles. Some pieces were 2 inches by 2 inches. Some were the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, and somewhere in all of that, scattered across pine forests, swamps, and fields, were the remains of 7 astronauts. 11. The search. What followed was the largest ground search operation in American history. FEMA coordinated the response. The FBI was tasked with finding and recovering the crew. 500 FBI agents deployed to Texas and Louisiana. In total, more than 25,000 people from 270 organizations searched 2.3 million acres. They worked 12-hour shifts. They combed through pine forests, boggy terrain, and lake beds. And every single time remains were found, every single time, everyone stopped. Everything stopped. And they held a moment of silence. 12. The animal bones. Here's a detail that nobody talks about. The search area was rural East Texas, hunting country. Searchers were finding bones constantly. Most of them turned out to be animal bones. Every single one had to be checked and verified by forensic specialists before the search could continue. FBI agent Amy Ford later said, "This is where people hunt." Searchers were finding bones right and left. The sheer scale of the forensic challenge was staggering. 13. The 5-mile radius. Despite the shuttle disintegrating at 200,000 feet while traveling at Mach 18, despite the debris field spanning 2,000 square miles, despite the chaos and the scale of the search, all 7 crew members were found. And here's the part that stops you cold. All 7 were recovered within a 5-mile area of each other. The crew module had held together long enough to keep them close. They were identified through DNA and dental records. 14. The helmet. Among the first images to emerge from the debris field was a photograph of a charred astronaut's helmet lying in a Texas field. It became one of the defining images of the disaster, a single object, recognizable, human, sitting in the dirt surrounded by pine needles. It said everything that words couldn't. The helmet had survived re-entry. The person inside it had not. 15. The film canister. Somewhere in the debris field, searchers found an undeveloped film canister. Inside it was a roll of film. The film was developed, and on it was the last photograph ever taken of the Columbia crew. All 7 of them, together, in orbit, smiling. Their shirt colors indicated which shift they were on. Kalpana Chawla, Rick Husband, Laurel Clark, and Eileen Ramon in the front row. David Brown, William McCool, and Michael Anderson in the back. The photo had survived re-entry inside its canister. The people in it had not. 16. The worms. This is the detail that breaks your brain a little. Among the experiments aboard Columbia was a study involving Caenorhabditis elegans, microscopic roundworms, sealed in aluminum canisters. When searchers found the canisters in the debris field weeks after the disaster, they opened them. The worms were alive. They had survived re-entry, impact, and weeks in the Texas heat. The worms that the Columbia crew had been studying in space were still alive. The crew was not. 17. The helicopter crash. The Columbia disaster didn't just claim 7 lives. During the search for debris, 2 pilots aboard a search helicopter were killed when their aircraft crashed. Their names were Jules Meir Jr. and Charles Krennic. They died looking for the remains of people they had never met, doing a job that nobody asked them to do. The Columbia disaster's death toll is officially 7. The real number is 9. 18. The debris that kept coming back. The search officially ended, but Columbia never really stopped returning. In 2011, 8 years after the disaster, A round aluminum tank from the shuttle was discovered in Lake Nacogdoches in eastern Texas. The lake had been in a drought, and the water level dropped enough to expose it. It was full of mud. A NASA engineer who had worked on the shuttle for over 30 years recognized it immediately. It was shipped back to Kennedy Space Center, where all recovered Columbia debris is stored in a climate-controlled section of the Vehicle Assembly Building. 19. The 2008 report. NASA released the Columbia Crew Survival Investigation Report in December 2008, 5 years after the disaster. It was 400 pages long. It detailed every second of the crew's final moments with forensic precision. It made 30 recommendations for improving helmets, seat restraints, and pressure suits. It concluded that even with perfect equipment, the crew could not have survived, but it also concluded that better equipment might have given them a few more seconds of consciousness, a few more seconds to know what was happening. Whether that's a mercy or a cruelty is something you'll have to decide for yourself. 20. The spy satellites. Here's the counterfactual that haunts the Columbia story. The Department of Defense had orbital spy cameras capable of imaging the damaged wing while Columbia was still in orbit. They were reportedly ready to do it. NASA managers said no. An independent investigation later concluded that if the damage had been confirmed, there were two viable options. The crew could have attempted an emergency repair using materials on board, or the shuttle Atlantis could have been launched on an emergency rescue mission as early as February 10th, before Columbia's life support ran out. The crew could have been saved. The decision not to look made that impossible. 21. The foam that was always there. The piece of foam that destroyed Columbia was approximately 1.67 pounds. It was carved by hand from the external tank's bipod ramp, a process that had been done the same way for decades. The foam had been shedding on launches since STS-1, the very first shuttle flight in 1981. For 22 years, NASA had been launching astronauts on a vehicle with a known, documented, recurring defect that had been classified as acceptable. The Columbia disaster wasn't caused by a single piece of foam. It was caused by 22 years of deciding that the foam didn't matter. 22. The asteroids. After the disaster, 7 asteroids orbiting the Sun between Mars and Jupiter were named after the Columbia crew: Rick Husband, Mike Anderson, David Brown, Kalpana Chawla, Laurel Clark, Ilan Raman, William McCool. They orbit out there right now in the dark, between the planets. 7 rocks named for 7 people who died 200,000 feet above Texas on a Saturday morning in February, 16 minutes before they were supposed to land.